What is the darker side of democracy? Is democracy genuinely, truly so sacrosanct that it must be imparted as the most important values to our learning or school going or university going students? Democracy is financed. So, who are the financier of democracy? Bankers, financial institutions, investors, hedge funders. So, are these financiers the protector of human values or their core financial interests, which are always contradictory? If we look at the beginning of democracy, then we see that the so called democracy, modern democracy, was funded by the financial institutions. These were basically family institutions. Financial institutions are family institutions. As early as 15th, 16th century, the European kings were funded, provided debt by sometime the like crusades was funded by church, Roman church, who had the power to collect tax. They had huge money. So it was church that itself was like a banking institution, one of the biggest banking institution, funded the entire crusade. And later on, Medici family of Italy funded the modern Italian rulers. Fuzzers funded the this Stuart kings of England. There were Rothschilds who funded other English kings, Spanish kings, later on America. These are all families which are working as banks. So when actually Napoleonic wars were funded by Rothschilds, right? So this is the war system from where the modern state based on representative democracy emerged, and the entire project of representative democracy was funded by the bankers, financial institutions, which were 90% owned by one or two, mainly one families. That system continues even today. So, what the common people believe that democracy is a system in which they decide who is going to rule them is indirectly, basically, it is a banker's choice who is going to rule. So people are not the master, they are puppet. Whichever the class, they are puppet. So only 10 to 20%, maybe 30% so-called people's interest might be addressed. And that is why they are always on the margins of democracy. So, democracy is basically a world system in the hands of bankers, and bankers are basically the families Rothschild, Rockefeller, JP Morgan. Correct. There are 10 more bigger names. Even if these families do not directly own the banks, they actually the basic investment in the banks have come from these families, and that's why it is impossible to actually measure the depth of the investments made by these families. In my studies, I find that more than 70% banks are owned by American banks are owned by some 10 families, and they organize all the drama of democracy. And what do these democracy do ultimately? They loot the resources of other countries. They topple or overthrow the governments which try to go against their interest. Any party, any government, any leader who at any point of time goes out of their commands and control is this way or that way attempted to be toppled, would be toppled. In 90% cases of democratic elections, it is a change of government, planned, commanded, managed by the deep state of America, mainly played by CIA. So democracy is a system that is it's a world system that is in the control of the deep state, played out by CIA in the interest of in the interest of the families, in the interest of bankers, banks, investors. The money which they have accumulated in last 500, 600 years, that money is the system. So what we call system is basically the money in the hands of some families. That is the system. At world level or at national level, what we call system is nothing. System is played out by deep state, but the system is owned by this family and this banking institutions. This is the system, and they are playing the game of democracy in the world. And therefore, only China and to some extent, some Islamic governments are outside the control of this deep state. However, it doesn't apply to Islamic countries. Only, say, China and Russia. Only these two countries are outside the game of democracy, which cannot be played out by CIA. So, in overall world, there are only two independent systems: Russia and China. The rest of all systems are just the game played by the deep state. And so what I wanted to say is that deep state is nothing but the money that has been earned in 500 years. At this level, Marx appears to be very correct that ये 500 सालों का इकट्ठा हुआ पैसा है जो दुनिया का सिस्टम है और दुनिया को चला रहा है. So there is hardly anything to feel proud of democracy. Rather, it is a misunderstood concept of it's slavery. It's basically slavery not understood properly. So the world system is nothing but the money accumulated in last 500 years by some families, and by this power of money, accumulated money, they are running the whole system. And they organize the elections, they can conduct military coup, they can conduct protest anywhere and this is what we call democracy. So this darker side of democracy is very important to understand. It's coming as worse than monarchy. So we celebrated the end of monarchy, feudalism, etc. in modern time in the name of democracy. But the reality of democracy is much more dangerous. It appears that nothing has changed since medieval time to modern time. The medieval monarchs were also controlled by the banker families, and modern democratic governments are also controlled by the banking families institutions. So this darker side of democracy must be kept in mind